All right, welcome back everybody to Sports and Money. I really appreciate you being with us today. The Cleveland Browns, as you know, last weekend pretty much shocked the entire NFL world by executing 4 trades in about 2 days. We're going to look at those trades today. Now, to be sure, we were right in the middle of free agency. Things are happening at warp speed. I'm not going to cover those free agent moves for the Browns today. We'll do that at some future time. I just wanted to take an in-depth look at these 4 trades, what the Browns are doing, and what might be in store for the future. So let's start with each of those trades. The first one that went down on Friday was Jarvis Landry getting traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Browns for a 2018 4th-round pick. That would be number 123 overall, and then a 2019 7th-round pick. I really like this trade in particular. I think this is the best trade of the 4 because I think you really know what you're getting with Jarvis Landry. He's a slot receiver. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He catches the ball a ton. He gets a ton of targets and grabs every single season for the Dolphins. I don't see any reason why he won't do the same thing for the Cleveland Browns. You really know what you're going to get from this guy. I've heard some people criticize him because he doesn't have a lot of yards after the catch. I think the Browns will be okay with that. But he can really catch the ball a lot. Very reliable guy, very dependable. So I like this trade. You didn't give up a lot to get him. You gave up number 123 this year and then a 7th-round pick next year. So you didn't give up a lot to get this guy. And so I really like this trade, picking up Jarvis Landry for the Cleveland Browns at wide receiver. Now, he's not a lead receiver. He's not your number 1 receiver, but he's a great, really good slot receiver. And I think they're really going to like him there in Cleveland. So I think that's a definite upgrade at that spot. Trade number 2 that also went down last Friday as well. This was Tyrod Taylor. Like this trade too. You gave up a 3rd-round pick this year, number 65 overall, to get him. Tyrod Taylor, as you know, led the Bills to their first playoff appearance in a long time. And the Bills gave him up for not much. A 3rd-round pick, I think we said number 65 overall. That is not much. It's not nothing, but it's not a lot. And the Bills gave him up for that. So you've seen a definite upgrade at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. We know what Tyrod Taylor can do. I don't think he's ever going to be the kind of guy that can lead your franchise to Super Bowl wins unless he just has an enormously talented roster around him. But we do know that he is an upgrade over DeShone Kizer and the other guys that the Browns have had at quarterback recently. So for this upcoming season at least, I really like Tyrod Taylor, and a lot of people are referring to him as a stopgap quarterback and that he will only be there for a season or 2. In theory, you'd like to see the Browns draft somebody at quarterback at either the number 1 overall or number 4 overall, depending on how they view the talent field in the draft. But for Tyrod Taylor to be here for now, it's a good thing for the Browns, and we'll see what happens for him in the future. But I do like this trade as well. Now, the other 2 trades I'm not as huge a fan of. In general, I like what they did here with all 4 trades. I wouldn't grade these next 2 trades as good as I would grade these top 2. I really like these top 2, especially the Jarvis Landry trade, but I really like both trades. I would give them very high grades if I was grading. This 3rd trade, I don't have a problem with. I just wouldn't grade it as high, and here's why. Damarious Randall, he's a former 1st-round pick. He's got a ton of potential. He was drafted number 30 overall. Everybody knows that he has potential, but he really struggled in Green Bay. I've seen a lot of media reports referring to him as a potential starting quarterback, and he very well may be, but he might not be a very good starting cornerback. Matter of fact, there's even talk that they might move him back to safety, which tends to seem to be a more comfortable position for him. We'll see what the Browns have in store. Damarious Randall does have a lot of talent. He can start for you. If a change of scenery helps him, then good for the Browns. But he did struggle in Green Bay. Mike McCarthy up in Green Bay had really grown tired of him. Has said so as much a couple times early last season. So they were ready to move on from Damarious Randall. So while he's got talent, he just has not shown it. He has really struggled on the field for the Green Bay Packers. But the Browns didn't give up a lot to get him either. DeShone Kizer, the Browns were done with DeShone Kizer. Hugh Jackson had pretty much said that late in the season. There was a lot of doubt about whether or not Hugh Jackson was really going to want to try to work with DeShone Kizer anymore. They give up DeShone Kizer. They were ready to move on from him. And then they swapped. This right here, the 4th and 5th round picks. Basically, the Browns give their 4 and 5 round picks to the Packers. And the Packers will be picking up the 4th and 5th round picks. I believe that's next year. In theory, the Packers picks would be worse picks that the Browns are getting. The Browns picks that they're giving up would be better picks that the Packers are getting. So you got a small downgrade there. I'm not crazy about this deal because you just don't know what you're going to get for Damarious Randall, but it's not hurting you any either because Damarious Randall does have potential. You were moving on from Kizer. You didn't give up a whole lot to get him. So this is an okay deal here. I still like this deal. I just wouldn't rate it as high as the first two. Deal number 4, Danny Shelton is moving on. Now, in order to give up Danny Shelton to the Patriots, the Browns are getting a 3rd round pick next year. So that's going to be probably like number 90, 95 overall. Still a top 100 player, but that's going to be late in the 3rd round, more than likely, knowing the Patriots. The Browns also had to give up a 5th round pick this year. So I'm not a huge fan of this deal, but I'm still okay with it. I still actually like it. I'm just not as big a fan of this deal as I am the other 3. And here's why. Danny Shelton has a ton of potential. He has a boatload of potential. As a matter of fact, I think he is really going to explode and do well in New England. I think he is perfect for what the Patriots love to do and have loved to do for years and years now. I think he is really going to be perfect there at defensive tackle for the Patriots. I think Bill Belichick is going to love having Danny Shelton there if he can stay healthy. And even if he doesn't live up to all the potential that they thought that was going to be there when they drafted him, if he even picks up 80-90% of that, there's just a tremendous amount of potential here from Danny Shelton. He has not played bad in Cleveland. He just has not been the superstar that a lot of people thought he might be. So watching Danny Shelton leave, I don't really like that, but I'm okay with it because the Cleveland Browns think that under Greg Williams' system, he just doesn't fit. So if you are putting in a system and you know that the player just isn't going to fit, you just don't think Danny Shelton's going to be a good fit in that system, then it's actually a smart thing to go ahead and move him on to a different place. I would have been a bigger fan of this deal had they not given up the 5th round pick to go along with it. I'm not sure that they got great value here because with the Patriots, you know it's going to be right around number 95. It's going to be in the late 100s, this 3rd round draft pick. And then your pick, more than likely, is going to be right in the middle of the 5th round. I just don't think they got great value here. Had this 5th round pick, and I'm quibbling, I know I am, had this 5th round pick been a 7th round pick, I would have been a much greater fan of that. But this may have been the best deal that they had on the table. So those are the individual deals. Now I want to go back through and look at the finances. Now I want to make one thing perfectly clear. These 4 deals were football moves. They were not financial moves. They were football moves. John Dorsey made each of these deals to improve the team the way he saw fit. And so I'm okay with that. But like all good deals, these good deals have good financial sides as well. So we're going to look at that going back. Jarvis Landry making $15.9 million this year on his cap hit. That's a large cap hit. But that's okay. After next year, it goes off the books. Jarvis Landry is not under contract next year if you don't want him to be. Besides that, the Browns have a ton of cap space. They started off the offseason with $109 million in cap space, far and away more than anybody else in the NFL had. The Jets, I think, were second at about 82 or 83 million. After these 4 trades, now keep in mind, the cap space that these teams have is changing constantly and for the most part shrinking over the next month. Vastly shrinking. It is changing at warp speed. But at the time that the Browns made these 4 trades, they went from $109 million in cap space down to about $82.5 million in cap space. You can see it right there. $82.5 million in cap space. That's about what the Jets had to start off with, and the Jets were the second highest cap space team at the start of the offseason. So you can see how much money the Browns had to spend. They had a boatload of money to spend, and this is okay to spend it this way, and we'll get into why. Jarvis Landry, even though he's going to be making $14.9 against the cap this coming season, you don't have to keep him on the roster next season. There is no dead cap hit for next season. He has a 5th-year option. If you like what you see if you have Jarvis Landry, if you like what you see out of him, you can try to negotiate a new deal. You can franchise him If you want to, you can work something out. If you don't like what you see and you're ready to move on, it doesn't cost you anything to move on, even though it's 15.9 mil this year. Same thing, almost exactly the same thing for Tyrod Taylor. His cap hit is $16 million for this year. If you like what you see out of him this year and you're really convinced that you want to get him for a couple more seasons, you can negotiate a deal with him. If you don't like what you see, or if you really just fall in love with whoever you draft in the first round at quarterback in this draft, you can let him walk and it costs you nothing again. So these two guys together bring almost $32 million to the cap space this year, but it's all gone after this season, and it costs you nothing in dead cap space. So it's a really great financial move. It's almost like all three of these guys, Randall, Landry, and Taylor, are basically auditioning for the Browns. And so if you don't like what you see out of any of the three of them, you can let them all walk, and it costs you very, very little in cap space, in dead cap. Now, third guy, Damarious Randall, he's a very low cap number. I think it's about $1.5 million this year, something like that. If you want to pick up his fifth-year option next year, it's not a bad number. If he really shows you what he can do this year in the backfield, in the backfield of the defense for the Browns, that would be a good move as well. So all three of these guys auditioning for the Browns. It's a really great financial move for the Browns to do all three of these things. I want to wrap this up with a bit of a summary. My question would be, what are the Browns doing long term? Even though I like each of these four moves individually, they're good football moves, they're good financial moves. I do have a question about what the Browns are trying to do long term. And I'm sure if I were to ask General Manager John Dorsey this, he would say basically, shut up, you idiot, I'm building a football team. But I want you to watch this. The Browns, when the offseason started, Sashi Brown and Paul DePodesta had a massive war chest built up. Tons of draft picks this year, tons of cap space, cap flexibility, and then you still had all your draft picks for next year. After these four trades the Cleveland Browns made, they actually have a total of three fewer draft picks this year and next year than they had at the start before these four trades. They in the conglomerate, if you add it all together, some coming, some going, they now have three fewer draft picks this year and next year together than they had before all these trades transpired. That's not a bad thing. They had 14 draft picks this year. I think it was 14, maybe it was 12. They had a ton of draft picks. It's hard to use all those draft picks in 1 year. It's hard to bring all those people to camp. It's hard to get all those people on the football team. So that's not a bad thing. But the question is, if for some reason all of these people walk, if you decide that Taylor, Landry, and Randall either do not perform well for you, or you are not able to re-sign them to a contract number that you and the player can agree on, then you have basically rented all three of these players for one season and given up three draft picks to do so. So you've started to see the Browns here take apart a little bit of what Sashi Brown had put together. And I want to say this: anybody can improve a 1-31 football team. John Dorsey here has made some good moves, but these are relatively easy moves. His hardest things to do will come when he drafts his quarterback, when he begins to work through these other draft picks. Then in a season or two, after the Browns have returned to some level of mediocrity or average, will he actually be able to put them in a position to win? That's the hard part. It doesn't take a lot to improve a 1-31 football team. Now, I've heard a lot of people in the media after these four trades. I'm not talking about the free agency period, which is going on right now. After the free agency period, the Browns will look drastically different than they do. After just these four trades, I've heard a lot of people in the media instantly catapult the Browns into 7 wins next season, 5 wins next season, and I just don't think that these four trades by themselves will have as big an impact on the Browns as what some people are saying. Now, Taylor is a definite upgrade at quarterback. Landry is a drastic upgrade at wide receiver. Randall has potential. But you're losing Danny Shelton. The Browns anticipate, in fact, they have lost Joe Thomas to retirement. So there's some there's some improvement there on the team, but it's not enough on this Browns roster to catapult them to 5 or 7 wins next season. That's really just a lot of excitement about the Browns finally doing something that makes sense. I would also insert this: Sashi Brown at some point, and Paul DePodesta as well. These guys at some point were going to make this kind of move, where they actually were going to start bringing back in the real football players and the guys that were starter caliber and Pro Bowl caliber players. Was it going to be this off season? We don't know. Maybe Sashi Brown, I would love to talk to Sashi Brown and ask him, talk to him about it. Maybe Sashi Brown was going to wait another off season or even 2, who knows, before he really started doing this. We don't know how long he was going to continue to build up the war chest and try to draft. John Dorsey is coming in though, and his plan instantly and obviously is to immediately start improving this football team, and to do so every offseason in the future. Not to try to stockpile draft picks, not to necessarily try to stockpile this kind of cap space like the Browns have had this offseason. John Dorsey clearly is coming in to improve the football team, and he's done that. And he will continue to do that during this offseason. As we get along, we'll see what he does in free agency. So those are the 4 trades. I like them. This all makes sense. The Browns aren't locking themselves into anything here that they can't get out of. They have a chance to see what all 3 of these players can do. Maybe all 3 of these players land on the Browns for a very long time. Maybe they're all gone after 1 season. But they still have a ton of cap space to spend on their free agents. They're doing it right now as we speak. They're spending this cap space, this $82.5 million on free agents. So we'll see what they do with the free agent sides. But that's the 4 trades, and we'll see what they do going forward. Thank you so much for being with us. I get a lot of this stuff from SpotTrack. Feel free to check that out. I do want to say this too. You can get a lot of good stuff from Over the Cap. I don't want to just endorse SpotTrack. I like the way SpotTrack lays things out. You can also get some of this information from Over the Cap. Over the Cap, their website tends to have a lot more larger information about league-wide stuff. SpotTrack tends to highlight more the individual contracts. Anyway, thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next time on Sports and Money. I'm Ben Parker. Thank you.